The Seaside Haven Cafe in Monterey, California, hummed with the familiar chaos of a Saturday morning breakfast rush, its windows framing the Pacific Ocean's restless waves under a sky streaked with dawn's pink and gold. The salty tang of the sea mingled with the aroma of sizzling bacon and freshly brewed coffee filling the air of the cozy diner, where checkered tablecloths and weathered wooden booths told stories of decades spent serving locals and tourists alike. At the heart of this controlled frenzy was Elena Harper, a 45-year-old waitress whose graceful movements belied the weight of her years. With her chestnut hair pulled into a loose bun and a smile that warmed even the weariest traveler, Elena navigated the crowded tables with the ease of someone who'd spent 2 decades pouring coffee and offering quiet comfort. Her apron, slightly frayed at the edges, held a small collection of seashells she'd gathered from Monterey's shores, each one carefully placed on every table, as her personal touch a reminder of the ocean's beauty in a world that often felt too harsh. Elena was no stranger to hardship herself. Widowed 5 years ago when her husband Tom died in a car accident, she'd raised her daughter Sophie alone, balancing long shifts at the cafe with the fierce love of a mother determined to give her child a better life. Now, with Sophie away at college studying marine biology, the cafe had become Elena's second home, a place where she knew every regular's order by heart, and where her kindness had a way of softening even the grumpiest patron's edges. This morning, though, something felt different. A subtle shift in the air as Elena wiped down a table near the window, adjusting a tiny abalone shell in its center. The diner was louder than usual, packed with families, fishermen, and a group of boisterous tourists fresh off a whale-watching tour, their voices clashing with the clatter of plates and the sizzle of the grill. Amid the noise, Elena's sharp eyes caught a flicker of distress in the corner booth, where a man in a tailored navy suit sat across from a young boy who couldn't have been older than 9. The man whose silver cufflinks glinted in the morning light was clearly out of place in the casual seaside diner, his posture rigid as he glanced at his buzzing phone, its screen flashing with notifications. The boy, however, held Elena's attention. He was rocking gently back and forth, his small hands pressed over his ears as if trying to block out the world. His dark curls fell over his forehead, and his wide hazel eyes darted nervously around the room, taking in every sound, the scrape of a chair, the laughter of the tourists, the jangle of the bell above the door. Elena recognized the signs immediately. Her neighbor's daughter, Mia, had similar sensitivities, and Elena had learned over the years that children like this boy thrived on routine and calm things the chaotic diner was not providing today. The man who she guessed was the boy's father, given their shared sharp jawline, looked up from his phone with a mix of concern and helplessness, his fingers hovering over the screen as if torn between answering another call and comforting the child across from him. Elena couldn't help but wonder what had brought this unlikely pair to her quiet corner of Monterey, and why a man who looked like he belonged in a boardroom was struggling so visibly with the gentle soul beside him. As Elena refilled coffee mugs at a nearby table, she kept an eye on the corner booth, her maternal instincts humming with quiet urgency. The boy was methodically arranging the cafe's coasters into a precise spiral pattern, his small fingers moving with deliberate care as he hummed a soft, repetitive melody that seemed to anchor him against the diner's clamor. His father, whose phone continued its relentless buzzing, muttered something under his breath about tech trend solutions and deadlines, his voice carrying the weight of a man juggling too many responsibilities. Elena caught a glimpse of his credit card as he handed it to pay for their drinks, Nathan Caldwell embossed in sleek silver letters, and her heart skipped a beat. Caldwell Innovations was a name she'd seen in the news, a tech empire synonymous with billion-dollar deals and cutting-edge AI. This man, Nathan, was no ordinary customer. His suit probably cost more than her monthly rent, and the sleek smartwatch on his wrist screamed wealth beyond her imagination. Yet all his success hadn't prepared him for the boy across the table whose humming grew louder as a group of tourists burst into laughter nearby. Elena approached with her warmest smile, her coffee pot tilted in offering. "More coffee, gentlemen?" she asked, softening her voice to avoid startling the boy. Nathan looked up, his green eyes shadowed with exhaustion, and something deeper guilt, perhaps? "Please," he said quietly, then hesitated, glancing at his son. "And do you have anything plain? No butter, no spices, just simple." His tone carried the weariness of someone who'd asked this question too many times, only to be met with confusion or judgment. Elena nodded, directing her words to the boy whose humming paused at her gentle tone. "How about some nice golden toast, plain as can be, with a little cup of honey on the side? You can decide how much you want, sweetheart." The boy peeked up through his lashes, his rocking slowing as he studied her. For a moment, his hazel eyes met hers, and a tiny nod signaled his approval. Elena felt a small victory in that nod, a crack in the wall of overwhelm surrounding him. Nathan watched the exchange with a flicker of surprise, his shoulders relaxing slightly as he murmured, "He doesn't usually. Thank you." But the moment of calm shattered when Nathan's phone rang again, its sharp tone cutting through the diner like a blade. The boy flinched, covering his ears, and his coaster spiral scattered as his hands trembled. The screen flashed "Tech Trend Urgent," and Nathan's face tightened, transforming from worried father to high-powered executive in an instant. "I have to take this," he said, standing abruptly. "It's about the merger. If I don't—" He stopped, looking at his son, torn between the call and the child who needed him. Elena saw the boy's eyes follow his father as Nathan stepped outside, pacing beyond the cafe's glass windows, one hand pressed to his ear, the other gesturing emphatically. Through the window she could see him checking his watch, his expression growing more frustrated with each passing second. That's when trouble brewed. The group of tourists at the next table, their voices loud with post-tour excitement, began commenting on the boy's behavior. "What's with that kid? One of them, a man in a loud Hawaiian shirt?" muttered, his tone dripping with disdain. "Can't he just sit still like a normal kid?" Another laughed, mimicking the boy's rocking motion. Elena's heart clenched as she saw the boy's hands shake his carefully arranged coasters, now a chaotic mess, on the table. His hazel eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and his humming grew frantic, a desperate attempt to self-soothe. Outside, Nathan was oblivious, still deep in his call, his back to the window as the merger demanded his full attention. Elena set down her coffee pot with deliberate calm, her protective instincts flaring. She'd spent 20 years in this diner, shielding everyone from heartbroken teens to lonely retirees, and she wasn't about to let this boy, whose name she guessed might be something soft like Liam face cruelty, alone. She approached the tourists' table, her steps measured but firm, her smile unwavering, yet carrying an authority honed by years of handling difficult customers. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice warm but edged with steel, "that young man over there is having a tough morning. I'm sure you can remember what it felt like to be overwhelmed when you were his age." She refilled their mugs without breaking eye contact, a gesture that somehow made her words land harder. "Maybe we could keep our voices down and give him a little space to feel safe." The lead tourist, a burly man with sunburned cheeks, looked startled, unused to being called out. "Lady, we're just trying to enjoy our breakfast," he grumbled, but his tone softened under Elena's steady gaze. "If the kid can't handle a diner, maybe he shouldn't be here." Elena's smile didn't falter, but her eyes sharpened. "This cafe's been serving families for 30 years because we believe Everyone deserves a place to feel welcome. That boy is someone's whole world, just like your families are yours." The table fell silent, the younger tourists shifting uncomfortably as one muttered an apology. Elena turned back to the boy, crouching to his level. "Hey, sweetheart," she said softly. "I love how you arranged those coasters. It looks like a whirlpool in the ocean. Did you make that pattern yourself?" The boy hesitated, then nodded, his rocking slowing as he pointed to the coasters. "It's like the tide," he whispered, his voice barely audible but clear with purpose. "I like the ocean." Elena's heart swelled. "That's beautiful, honey. The ocean's my favorite, too." She glanced out the window where Nathan was still pacing his call, growing more animated. But before she could say more, the cafe door swung open, and a sharply dressed woman with an iPad clutched to her chest strode in, her heels clicking with purpose. "Mr. Caldwell," she called, spotting Nathan outside the tech trend meetings, "been moved to 9:30. We need to leave now." The boy's shoulders tensed, his whirlpool of coasters forgotten as he whispered, "No. Daddy promised we'd have breakfast together." Elena saw the panic rising in his eyes, and she knew this moment was about to change everything for the boy, for his father, and maybe even for her. The Seaside Haven Cafe pulsed with the rhythm of a Saturday morning, its air thick with the scent of pancakes and the murmur of conversations bouncing off the weathered wooden walls. The Pacific Ocean glimmered beyond the windows, its waves a steady heartbeat against Monterey's rocky shore. But inside, a different kind of storm was brewing. Elena Harper, her apron dusted with flour from a morning of bustling between tables, stood by the counter, her eyes fixed on the corner booth, where 9-year-old Liam Caldwell sat, his small frame hunched over a scattered pile of coasters. His earlier whirlpool pattern, a delicate creation born of focus and calm, lay in disarray, disrupted by the harsh words of a group of tourists at the next table. Their mocking laughter still lingered in the air, their comments about Liam's rocking and humming. "What's wrong with him? Can't act normal," cutting deeper than they could know. Liam's hazel eyes, shimmering with unshed tears, darted toward the glass door, where his father, Nathan Caldwell, paced outside, his phone pressed to his ear, as he negotiated the high-stakes Tech Trend Solutions merger. Elena's heart ached for the boy whose quiet humming had turned frantic, a shield against a world that felt too loud and too cruel. She'd seen this before, not just in her neighbor's daughter Mia, but in the countless souls who passed through the cafe, each carrying their own invisible burdens. For 20 years, Elena had made this diner a sanctuary, a place where a kind word or a warm smile could ease the weight of a hard day, and she wasn't about to let Liam's fragile sense of safety crumble under the ignorance of strangers. But the tension in the air thickened as Cassandra Blake, Nathan's sharply dressed assistant, stood just inside the door, her iPad glowing with schedules and deadlines. Her voice, clipped and impatient, had just delivered a blow to Liam's world. "Mr. Caldwell, we need to leave now. The board won't wait." Liam's small hands trembled as he clutched a single coaster, his whisper barely audible over the diner's din. "Daddy promised. He said today was ours." Elena set down her coffee pot, her maternal instincts flaring like a lighthouse in a storm. She moved toward the tourists' table, her steps steady, her smile a quiet force that had disarmed countless conflicts over the years. "Folks," she said, her voice warm, but carrying an unmistakable edge, "that young man over there is having a tough time. I know you didn't mean any harm, but maybe we could keep things a little quieter, give him some space to feel safe." The lead tourist, a man with a sunburned face and a loud Hawaiian shirt, scoffed his fork, pausing mid-bite. "We're just eating, lady. If the kid can't handle a diner, maybe he shouldn't be here." His companions chuckled, but Elena's gaze didn't waver. She leaned in slightly, refilling their coffee mugs, with deliberate care, her presence commanding respect. This cafe's been open for 30 years because we believe everyone deserves a place to feel at home. That boy's no different from your own kids or you when you were young. A little kindness goes a long way. The table fell silent. The younger tourists shifting uncomfortably, one muttering an apology as he glanced at Liam. Elena turned back to the booth, crouching beside Liam, who was rocking harder now, his hands pressed over his ears. "Hey, sweetheart," she said softly, her voice a gentle anchor. "I love how you made that whirlpool earlier. It reminded me of the tide pools down by the beach. Do you like the ocean?" Liam peeked at her through his fingers, his rocking slowing as he nodded. "I like starfish," he whispered, his voice small but clear. "They stick to rocks even when the waves are big." Elena smiled, her heart swelling. "That's beautiful, Liam. You're like a starfish, you know, strong, even when things get rough." She reached into her apron and pulled out a small polished seashell, one she'd found on a rare morning walk. "I found this on the shore last week. Want to hold on to it for me?" Liam hesitated, then took the shell, his fingers tracing its smooth ridges. For the first time, a faint smile tugged at his lips. "It's like the ones in my book," he said, his voice steadier. "I have a book about sea animals. Starfish, crabs, anemones," he trailed off, his eyes brightening with a spark of pride. But the moment of connection was interrupted by Cassandra's sharp voice, now directed at Liam as she stepped closer to the booth. "Liam, your father's got a company to run. This merger affects thousands of jobs. You need to understand that." Her tone was cold, efficient, as if Liam's distress was a scheduling error to be fixed. Elena stood, her protective instincts flaring brighter. "Ma'am," she said, keeping her voice calm but firm, "he's 9 years old. He understands promises, not mergers. Maybe we can let him and his dad have their breakfast in peace." Cassandra's eyebrows shot up, her lips tightening into a thin line. "I'm sorry." "Who are you?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. "This is a family matter, and I don't think a waitress." She stopped as Elena held her gaze unflinching. "I'm Elena Harper, and this is my diner where we treat everyone like family, especially kids." Liam's rocking slowed further as he watched the exchange, clutching the seashell tightly. Outside, Nathan ended his call and hurried back, inside his face etched with worry as he saw Liam's distress. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes flicking between his son and Cassandra. Before Elena could respond, one of the tourists, emboldened by Cassandra's attitude, muttered loudly, "Kid's making a scene again. Can't you control him?" Liam's face crumpled, tears spilling over as he dropped the seashell, his hands shaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I don't want to be trouble." Nathan knelt beside the booth, his expensive suit creasing as he reached for Liam's hand. "Buddy, you're not trouble. You're my whole world." But Cassandra cut in, her voice sharp with urgency. "Mr. Caldwell, the Tech Trend Board is waiting. If we don't leave now, you'll lose their trust. This deal's been 18 months in the making." Nathan's jaw tightened, his eyes torn between his son and the weight of his empire. Elena saw the battle raging in him, love versus duty, a father's heart against a CEO's responsibilities. She stepped closer, her voice gentle but resolute. "Mr. Caldwell, I've been serving families here for 20 years. I've seen parents torn apart trying to balance work and love. But right now, Liam needs you more than any boardroom does. He needs to know his dad's promise means something." Nathan looked at her, then at Liam, whose tear-streaked face held a fragile hope. The diner grew quieter, as if the crowd sensed the weight of the moment. Nathan's phone buzzed again, but this time he silenced it, his decision clear. "Cassandra, tell the board I'll review the documents tonight. We're staying for breakfast." Cassandra's mouth opened in shock. "Nathan, you can't be serious. I'm serious," he said, his voice firm. "My son comes first." Liam's eyes widened, a flicker of disbelief giving way to a small, hopeful smile. Elena felt tears prick her own eyes as she watched father and son reconnect. But the moment was shattered when Cassandra, her face flushed with anger, pulled out her phone and made a call. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice icy, "Nathan's prioritizing personal matters over the tech trend deal. His son's behavior is derailing everything." Liam overheard his smile vanishing as he shrank into the booth, his hands covering his ears again. "I'm sorry, Daddy," he whispered. "I'm making you lose everything." Elena's heart broke at the words, and she knew this battle wasn't over. Cassandra's cruel words had wounded Liam deeper than any tourist's taunt, and the ripple effects of this moment would test Nathan's resolve, Liam's courage, and Elena's belief that kindness could change even the hardest hearts. The Seaside Haven Cafe had grown unnaturally still, the usual clatter of plates and chatter of patrons fading into a hushed tension that clung to the air like sea mist. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the checkered floor, but the warmth of the Pacific outside couldn't touch the chill left by Cassandra Blake's venomous words. Her phone call accusing 9-year-old Liam Caldwell of derailing his father's billion-dollar Tech Trend Solutions merger hung over the corner booth like a storm cloud. Liam, his small frame curled inward, rocked back and forth, his hands pressed tightly over his ears as if he could block out the weight of being called a burden. His hazel eyes, once bright with curiosity, as he spoke of starfish and tide pools, now glistened with tears he fought to hold back. The scattered coasters on the table, remnants of his earlier whirlpool pattern, lay untouched, a silent testament to the fragile world Cassandra's cruelty had shattered. Elena Harper, the diner's steadfast waitress, stood nearby, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and protectiveness. For 20 years, she'd made the Seaside Haven a sanctuary for Monterey's weary souls, and she'd be damned if she let this boy's spirit be crushed under the weight of an adult's careless ambition. Nathan Caldwell. Liam's father and the CEO of Caldwell Innovations knelt beside the booth, his tailored suit creased and forgotten as he reached for his son's trembling hand. "Liam, buddy," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you're not making me lose anything. You're why I do all of this." But Liam's rocking only intensified his whisper, barely audible. "She said, I'm not normal. She said I'm trouble." Nathan's face darkened, his green eyes flashing with a fury Elena hadn't seen before. He stood turning to Cassandra, who still clutched her iPad like a shield, her expression a mix of defiance and disbelief. "Cassandra." Nathan said, his voice low but carrying the weight of a decision made. "You're fired. Clear your desk today. Security will meet you at the office." The words landed like a thunderclap, silencing the diner entirely. Cassandra's mouth fell open, her professional composure cracking like thin ice. "Nathan, you can't be serious," she sputtered, her heels clicking as she took a step back. "Over this? Over a child's tantrum in a diner?" Nathan's gaze didn't waver. "Over my son," he corrected, his voice growing stronger. "Over the fact that you called a 9-year-old boy a problem because he experiences the world differently. Over 2 years of watching you treat Liam like an inconvenience, instead of the most important person in my life." Cassandra's face flushed red, her eyes darting to the other diners who watched in stunned silence. "You'll regret this," she hissed, grabbing her purse and storming toward the door, her heels echoing like gunfire. The bell above the door jangled sharply as she left, but the damage lingered. Liam's rocking hadn't stopped his small hands now clutching the seashell Elena had given him, its smooth ridges a lifeline in his distress. "I'm sorry, Daddy," he whispered again, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to ruin everything." Elena knelt beside the booth, her apron brushing the floor as she met Liam's eyes. "Sweetheart," she said softly, her voice a gentle tether pulling him back from the edge. "Can you look at me for a second?" Liam hesitated, then peeked through his fingers, his tears spilling over. "Do you know what I see when I look at you?" She asked, her tone warm but unwavering. "I see a boy who notices things others miss. The way you made that whirlpool with the coasters, the way you talked about starfish sticking to rocks. You see the world like it's a treasure map full of wonders most people walk right past. That's not trouble, Liam. That's a gift." Liam's rocking slowed his hands, dropping slightly as he clutched the seashell tighter. "But," she said, "I'm not normal," he whispered, his voice raw with fear. Elena reached into her apron and pulled out a small worn leather journal, its pages filled with sketches of seashells and notes from her years at the diner. "When I'm sad or overwhelmed," she said, opening it to a page with a delicate drawing of a sand dollar, "I draw the things that make me feel calm. This one's from a beach walk with my daughter Sophie when she was about your age. She used to get teased at school for being shy, but she learned that being different just means you have something special to share." Liam's eyes flicked to the sketch, his fingers tracing the air as if imagining his own drawing. "I like to draw fish," he said quietly. "Clownfish like in the ocean. They hide in anemones when they're scared." Elena smiled, her heart swelling. "That's beautiful, Liam. Would you like to draw one for me?" She slid a napkin and a pen from her apron toward him, and Liam hesitated, then began sketching his hand. Moving with careful precision, the lines formed a clownfish, its stripes bold and vibrant, nestled among wavy anemone tendrils. As he drew, his rocking eased his focus, shifting from fear to creation. Nathan watched his expression, a mix of awe and guilt. He sat back in the booth, running a hand through his hair. "I've been so caught up in the company," he said, his voice low almost to himself. "I thought I was building a future for him, but I've been missing this." Elena glanced at him, seeing past the billionaire CEO to the exhausted father beneath. "You're here now," she said gently. "That's what matters." Nathan's phone buzzed again, the screen flashing with another urgent notification, but this time he turned it off completely, the click echoing like a vow. "No more," he said, looking at Liam, who was adding tiny bubbles to his sketch. "I'm calling off the tech trend meeting. They can wait until tomorrow. If they can't, they're not the right partners." Elena's eyes widened, but before she could respond, a soft voice spoke up from a nearby table. "Excuse me," said a woman in her 60s, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug. "I couldn't help overhearing. My grandson's like your boy, gets overwhelmed in loud places. What you just did standing up for him, it means a lot to see." Another diner, a young man with paint-splattered jeans, nodded. "My sister's autistic. She loves art, too. It's like her way of talking to the world." The room seemed to soften strangers, sharing stories of loved ones who felt things deeply, who navigated the world in their own way. A local artist, sitting at the counter with a sketch pad, approached the booth. "Hey, kid," she said to Liam, her voice kind. "I teach a painting class at the community center. If you like drawing fish, maybe you'd want to try painting some with us." Liam looked up, his eyes bright with a cautious hope. Can I, Daddy? He asked, clutching his napkin sketch. Nathan smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time that morning. Absolutely, buddy. We'll make it happen. Elena felt the diner come alive with a new energy, a quiet unity born of shared understanding. She handed Liam another napkin, encouraging him to keep drawing. "You've got a talent, Liam," she said. "Your fish could tell stories the ocean hasn't even dreamed of yet." Liam's smile grew, and he began sketching a second fish, this one with intricate fins. Nathan leaned forward, his voice steady with purpose. "Lena, what you said earlier about Liam needing me more than the boardroom, you're right. I've been letting the company define me, but it's not who I am. Not anymore." He paused, looking at his son. "I'm restructuring Caldwell Innovations, remote work, flexible hours, family-first policies. Starting today. Saturdays are Liam. Days no calls, no meetings, just us." Liam's head snapped up his pen, pausing. "Really? Daddy?" Every Saturday, Nathan nodded, ruffling his son's curls. "Every single one. We'll go to the aquarium, the beach, anywhere you want." Liam's face lit up, and he held up his napkin. "Look, Miss Elena, it's a lionfish. They're spiky, but beautiful." Elena laughed, her heart full. "Just like you, sweetheart, one of a kind." But the moment of triumph was tempered by Liam's lingering doubt. He set the napkin down, his voice small. "What if people think I'm weird?" Like that lady said, Nathan's expression softened and he pulled Liam close. "If anyone thinks that they're missing out on knowing someone extraordinary, you're not weird, Liam. You're my son, and you make the world better just by being you." Elena nodded, adding, "And you've got a whole diner full of people who see that too." She gestured to the other patrons, some of whom smiled back their earlier judgment, replaced by understanding. Liam's shoulders relaxed, and he picked up the pen again, adding a tiny starfish to his sketch. Nathan looked at Elena, his eyes glistening. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I don't know how you did it, but you reminded me what matters." Elena smiled, tucking her journal back into her apron. "Just doing my job, Mr. Caldwell, making sure everyone who walks through that door feels like they belong." As Liam continued drawing his lionfish, growing more intricate, a new sense of purpose settled over the booth. Nathan opened his phone not to answer calls, but to type a message to his board outlining his new vision for the company. Elena returned to her rounds, but her heart stayed with the boy whose sketches were bringing the ocean to life. The diner's hum resumed softer now, as if the morning had taught everyone a lesson in seeing the world through kinder eyes. But Elena knew the ripples of this moment were just beginning, and Liam's courage, sparked by a single act of compassion, would soon inspire something far greater than anyone in the Seaside Haven could imagine. The Seaside Haven Cafe glowed under the golden light of a Monterey afternoon, its windows reflecting the Pacific Ocean's endless dance of waves against the shore. 3 months had passed since the morning that had changed everything, and the diner hummed with its usual rhythm, families laughing over plates of waffles, fishermen swapping stories at the counter, and the faint jingle of the bell above the door, welcoming new faces. Elena Harper moved through the familiar chaos with her trademark grace. Her apron pocket jingling softly with the seashells she still placed on every table, a quiet reminder of the beauty in small things. At 45, she carried the weight of her years lightly, her chestnut hair streaked with a few more grays since the summer, her smile as warm as ever. The cafe had always been her sanctuary, a place where she'd poured 20 years of kindness into the lives of strangers and regulars alike. But today felt special, charged with a quiet magic she couldn't quite name. As she wiped down a table near the window, adjusting a tiny scallop shell in its center, the bell jangled and her heart lifted at the sight of Nathan Caldwell and his 9-year-old son Liam walking through the door. They wore matching grins, the kind born of shared adventures and inside jokes, their steps light with a joy that hadn't been there 3 months ago. Liam, his dark curls bouncing, ran straight to Elena, his hazel eyes sparkling with excitement. "Miss Elena, look what we made," he exclaimed, holding out a small canvas painted with a vibrant mural of sea creatures, starfish, clownfish, and a lionfish with spiky fins all swirling together in a tide pool bursting with color. "Daddy and I did it for the art club." Nathan dressed in jeans and a simple sweater. A far cry from the tailored suits of their first meeting approached more slowly, his green eyes soft with a peace Elena hadn't seen before. Liam insisted we stop by, he said, his smile suggesting he'd been just as eager to return. "We've been painting all morning at the community center. He's got a knack for it." Elena took the canvas, her fingers tracing the intricate details of Liam's lionfish. "This is incredible, Liam," she said, crouching to his level. "It's like you brought the whole ocean to life." Liam beamed, his earlier shyness replaced by a quiet confidence. "It's for the exhibit," he said proudly. "The unique creators are showing our art at the town hall next week. Everyone's invited, even you." Elena's heart swelled, remembering the boy who'd once hidden behind his coasters, afraid of being weird. Now he stood tall, his voice clear, his passion for art, a bridge to a world that was learning to see him as he was. 3 months ago, Elena's decision to stand up for Liam had set off a chain of changes no one could have predicted. Nathan had followed through on his promise to restructure Caldwell Innovations, moving to a hybrid work model that prioritized flexibility and family. The Tech Trend merger had fallen apart, but Nathan's shrug as he told Elena the story spoke volumes. "Best decision I never made," he said, leaning against the booth, as Liam flipped through a sketchbook filled with ocean creatures. Their board wanted control, not collaboration. Walking away opened doors to partners who value people over profits. He paused, watching Liam sketch a new fish on a napkin. "The company's doing better than ever. Productivity's up, turnover's down, and we're attracting talent who believe in our new vision. Turns out, when you put family first, everyone wins." Elena nodded, her eyes on Liam, who was adding delicate scales to his sketch. "And how's this guy doing?" she asked, though she could already see the answer. Nathan's smile widened. "He's thriving. The art class at the community center was a game changer. The teacher, Ms. Rivera, says he's got a real gift. And he started a club at school, the Unique Creators, for kids who think differently. They're teaching their classmates that being different isn't wrong. It's what makes you special." Liam looked up, his pen pausing. 3 more kids joined this week," he said, his voice brimming with pride. "We're going to paint a mural for the school, too. It's going to be a coral reef, so everyone feels like they're underwater, safe and happy." Elena laughed, her heart full. "That sounds like magic, Liam. You're changing the world one fish at a time." The diner's door jangled again, and Elena's breath caught as her daughter Sophie walked in, her backpack slung over one shoulder. At 19, Sophie was the spitting image of Elena in her youth, same chestnut hair, same warm brown eyes, but with a quiet intensity that came from her love of marine biology. She'd come home from college for the weekend, drawn by stories of Liam and the cafe's transformative summer. "Mom." Sophie called, weaving through the tables to hug Elena tightly. "I got your texts about Liam. I had to meet him." Liam's eyes lit up as Sophie approached the booth, her smile as open as her mother's. "Are you the one who likes starfish?" she asked, sliding into the seat across from him. Liam nodded, holding up his sketchbook. I drew a cushion, starfish. They're soft and squishy, like little pillows in the ocean. Sophie grinned, pulling out her phone to show him a photo from her marine biology lab, a vibrant starfish clinging to a rock. That's one I studied last week. Did you know starfish can regrow their arms if they lose one? They're like superheroes. Liam's face lit up, and he launched into a detailed explanation of his favorite sea creatures, Sophie listening with genuine interest. Nathan watched his expression, soft with gratitude. Elena, he said quietly, Sophie's amazing. You must be so proud. Elena nodded, her throat tight. I am. She's my starfish, strong, even when life's waves hit hard. As Liam and Sophie bonded over their shared love of the ocean, the diner buzzed with a new energy. A regular and elderly fisherman named Joe stopped by the booth, his weathered hands holding a coffee mug. Heard about your boy's art club, he said to Nathan. My granddaughter's shy like Liam was. She wants to join. Says she loves his fish drawings. Nathan smiled, handing Joe a flyer for the upcoming exhibit. Tell her to come. Liam's got a whole crew of creators now. Another patron, a young woman with a laptop, chimed in from a nearby table. I'm writing a piece for the local paper about the exhibit. It's inspiring what these kids are doing. Elena felt a lump in her throat as she watched the community rally around Liam's vision. His unique Creators Club had grown beyond the school, inspiring a town-wide exhibit at Monterey's Town Hall to celebrate neurodiversity. Paintings, sculptures, and poems by children who felt different, whether because of autism, shyness, or other unique traits, would fill the hall, each piece a testament to the beauty of seeing the world differently. Liam's coral reef mural, a centerpiece of the exhibit, had already drawn attention from local artists and educators who saw it as a symbol of inclusion and resilience. The moment grew even sweeter when Nathan pulled out a small envelope and handed it to Elena. The town council wanted me to give you this, he said, his voice warm. Inside was a certificate, elegantly printed, naming Elena Harper, the recipient of Monterey's First Kindness Award, a community-funded honor recognizing her role in inspiring change. It comes with a small grant, Nathan added, to support the cafe, or whatever you choose. You started this, Elena. That day you stood up for Liam. It didn't just change us. It changed everyone who saw it. Elena's eyes welled up as she read the certificate, her fingers tracing the words, for unwavering compassion. I was just doing my job, she said softly. But Nathan shook his head. You did more than that. You reminded me who I want to be for Liam, for myself, for everyone who works for me. Liam, overhearing, tugged at Elena's apron. Miss Elena, he said, his voice serious, you're like a lighthouse. You help people find their way when they're lost. Elena laughed through her tears, ruffling his curls. And you're my starfish, Liam, holding strong no matter what. As the afternoon faded into evening, Elena, Nathan, Sophie, and Liam made plans to meet at the beach that night for a stargazing adventure. Liam's idea from months ago, we should all look at the same stars so we're connected, even when we're far apart, had stuck with Sophie, who'd brought her telescope from college. They gathered on Monterey's shore, the sky a canvas of constellations, the ocean whispering secrets in the dark. Liam pointed out Orion's belt, his voice bright with wonder, while Sophie explained how stars like sea creatures had stories hidden in their light. Nathan, sitting beside Elena, watched his son with a quiet pride. I used to think success was about building an empire, he said, his voice low. Now I know it's about building moments like this. Elena smiled, her heart full. Moments are what make us rich, she said, her eyes on Liam and Sophie, who were laughing as they traced imaginary fish in the stars. The night ended with Liam handing Elena a small painted starfish, its colors shimmering in the moonlight. For your collection, he said. So you remember, you're extraordinary too. Back at the cafe the next day, Elena placed the starfish on the counter where it caught the morning light alongside her seashells. The town hall exhibit was a week away, but its impact was already felt. Children like Liam were finding their voices, parents like Nathan were rethinking their priorities, and a community was learning that kindness could ripple outward, changing lives in ways no one could predict. As Elena served coffee to a new group of tourists, she overheard them talking about the exhibit, their voices warm with excitement. "Heard it's kids who think differently," one said. "Sounds like something special." Elena smiled, her heart echoing Liam's words from months ago. "I'm not normal. I'm extraordinary." That morning in the seaside haven, one small act of courage had sparked a movement, proving that love, understanding, and a single waitress's heart could light up even the darkest corners of the world.